If you want to be able to buy the most expensive players and open the best packs in FC24, go to u7buy.com to buy your EA FC24 coins. It's cheaper than buying FC points and just as reliable. With their already amazing prices, you can get an extra 6% using promo code Inception at checkout. Hey guys, what's going on? Inception here, and welcome to another video. So thanks to you guys, we are continuing the tier list because people really enjoy these videos, right? So if people enjoy these videos, we'll continue to do them because I think it's very helpful for people to kind of like build their teams and to get a good idea of which cards are meta, which cards are sentimental, and all that kind of stuff. So with the defenders, guys, honestly, I'm not as picky in regards to putting cards at like an S, A, B, C, D. We'll adjust this accordingly because with this new tier list maker thing, we can just adjust it as we go. So obviously, if you really want to see the whole thing, just go to the end and then boom, right? But the defender one, there's actually a lot of very good options. So if you don't specifically see options in the S tier category, don't worry, because a lot of these cards that I'm going to be putting in the A tier category, I actually don't mind either. Like in this tier list, it's kind of like an S star and an S tier. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I would kind of consider it. But obviously, most of these defenders for longevity of the game, right, I wouldn't consider S tier. But there's some of them that like would actually last you a very, very good amount of time because they meet certain meta criteria that just suits how this game generally performs, okay? But this defensive one, there was a lot of very, very nice options to work with in comparison to like the midfielder one, for instance, right? Because a lot of these guys, the whole point is to make them as meta as possible, but just know that from my perspective, guys, I tell you guys this in every single tactic video, you want to try to get as full meta as possible, more specifically in your defensive lineup than anything else, because these guys will make the simplest mistakes when they don't have the simplest things, okay? Okay, guys, so let's get started with a Signon, the first card, right? So this one we actually have like an individual video for, so if you want to see the highlights, you can, right? This card I'm going to put into the A tier category because, to be honest with you guys, he was actually pretty decent to use. I actually enjoyed using him for what it was, right? Do I think he's an S tier card, a card you need to choose? No. As an A tier though, if you selected this card as one of your options, good for you. You're actually getting a pretty decent card in the right back position. Now, I want to do some comparisons to some cards, right? Just to give you guys a really good idea, because in my opinion, and not everyone's going to agree with this, right? In my opinion, I think it's super vital to have lengthy in the fullback position for most of the cards. Some cards, especially the female players that are not a lengthy, they kind of make up for it with other variables, right? For instance, Bacha is a pretty good example of that, right? But when it comes to the male players, right, having physical presence on that lengthy, incredibly helpful to work with, right? So with Walker, for instance, just as an example, this card, you can go in either direction of a shadow or an anchor. I've used this card a lot. You guys know that he's on my RTG account. And this card, Assignon, is one I've been using quite a bit as well because he's on Giyu's account, right? And this card is still a pretty decent selection, but I just think that the lengthy part of these cards, it just adds to that physical element. Can I show you guys just an example? I know this is like a top tier example, but it just shows you why this guy is just an absolute monster, right? So if we were to go to fullbacks in general, and then I go to someone like a Theo Hernandez, right? Theo Hernandez, you look at this card, and by default, you know, when you went to this card right here specifically, you're like, okay, you know, this card, I have to give him a controlled lengthy, or no, you got to give him a controlled lengthy because it makes him a lengthy. But then you go to the team of the year card, right? And this is where it's just ridiculous. Like, even if you have this card right here, it's still 780k because this guy just has like unique animations when it comes to defending, and you know, he's got the unique body type, so you know, they add some sauce to these cards. But this is the point that I'm trying to make, right? The lengthy is such a huge part of these cards to make them really nice, because even this card you give an anchor to. The team of the year, you don't have to give an anchor to. You would just give him a sentinel if you really wanted to, and you'd be working with a card that is just full meta for the whole year. So if you gave him that red foot champs thing, you're cooking, right? But guys, even if we were to go to some cheaper options, right? Let me give you guys another good example. And if you watch the tier list video, I put him at the S tier for a reason, right? Kai Havertz as a left back card, right? This guy is a lengthy when you provide him with the anchor. And I'm telling you guys this right now, like I mentioned in the review, like I mentioned in the tier list video, you really notice that part of the card. It's a very, very noticeable thing to give him that stuff, defensive stats, and physical capability. So Assignon is not on that level, right? Because obviously with his card, you cannot provide him with that ability, right? So if we go over here and I search up this specific thing here, Assignon. Okay, so if you go to his card, but we're going to talk about something that's very important, and this is a gameplay compensator for him, okay? Because we do have to talk about this specifically. Sorry, so let me just go to the defenders here, FC Evolutions Defenders, and we go here. Okay, perfect. We go here and we go to the completed ones. Because you need to notice something. This is what puts him in the A tier and it keeps him there because he's still decent, okay? So this card, if you go to his card, there's no possible way of making him a lengthy player. It is only controlled explosive. But do you know what adds to the card when it comes to the pace specifically? It's the playstyles, because they gave him a quick step and a rapid, and that was a massive deal to make this card a proper card to use in the meta of the gameplay. So he stays in the high tiers for the A, because I don't think he's a must get, but he stays in the high tiers as an A because it's actually still a very good solid card to use in the right back position. Two things I want to mention though, it's the lack of lengthy, and even though his dribbling stats is on the higher side, he still has like a physical element to him when he's dribbling, so he still feels emphasized in certain areas. But listen, if you decide to use a card like that, you know, playing at center back in a 3-back formation, playing as your right center back, or you play him at right back, that guy can still play in the top tier meta. So like I said, for this video, it's not as like, don't compare this A tier to another A tier, because he could still be used in the higher tiers. I just don't think he's like a must do S tier card, right? But yeah, those play styles that they ended up giving the card in regards to block, relentless for second man press is awesome, but it's the anticipate, rapid, quick step, press proven, really good play styles, W play styles to add to him to make him a card to get if you want to get those links in your team, right? Okay, Sergio Gomez. So someone actually brought something up with Sergio Gomez that I found to be pretty interesting, right? Because they actually looked into Sergio Gomez and they're like, hey, you know, like I can put him into the attacker's evolution, and the attacker's evolution wouldn't necessarily be horrible, because with this card on a shadow chemistry style, it's actually a well-formatted card. So to be fair to you guys, I actually did miss this out. So in the area of putting him in the useless category, it's not as useless anymore, right? Giving him a shadow chemistry style to boost the pace and the defending actually puts him in a well-rounded area that you can play in the midfield position. Now, the reason why I skipped this is because looking at it from a playstyles perspective, you're not really going to utilize the power header and the acrobatic as much on a card like this like you would on some of the other cards, right? So looking at it from a midfield perspective, you could totally do that. Looking at it from a defensive perspective, you can also do that too. So in both directions, you could totally do that. And I'll leave a top comment in the comment section for the other video, because that is something that I missed, and I will admit to that, right? But I do want to mention something about this card. For me, he was one of the top, like you guys can see in the video earlier, he was one of the top popular choices because obviously the Premier League and the Man City links. But I think that the playstyles are wasted more on him, and I would personally prefer defensively to have the Assignon over that Sergio Gomez. Now, Sergio Gomez, right, again, because of that whole variable of potentially adding him into the attacking one, I still think that as an evolution, he could still be pretty decent, right? Because he's actually formatted very nicely, right? When you provide him with the shadow chemistry style on the other one, because it actually gives him shooting capabilities, right? So if you went on the attacker's direction and he actually has some attacking stats on a shadow, this is an all-round midfielder, right? So if I was going to use an evolution, it would be for the attackers, specifically for that, not necessarily because of the play styles that they gave him on this specific evolution, because, you know, on this card, you could still use him as the attacking oriented center mid 100%, right? But in the defensive areas, guys, I noticed that in the fullback position specifically, this card, I gave him a shadow chemistry style. I just think that that pace is not enough. Okay, in the left back position, it's not, guys. Trust me, when you have a player like Kai Havertz, you have a player like Kyle Walker, you comp against really meta attackers and you need the pace in those areas. And there's no pace to be pushed out of this card for that specific spot. Can he play in that position? Yes. Do I find him to be that crazy meta-wise? No, I'd still prefer to use a Kai Havertz over him 100%, right? So as a selection, we'll add him into the A tier category, because in the A tier category, he's still a decent card. And In this video, I will mention to you in the attackers one as well, and we'll put it in the comment section as well as a top comment, that you can actually look into Sergio Gomez as a top tier option for the attacker one in the A tier category. Not necessarily a must do as an S tier, but in the A tier category, it's definitely a card that you can definitely add in that area, right? But I think that defensively, guys, you just need someone that has a stronger presence, and you need to have someone that is going to utilize those playstyles a little bit more. The bigger guys especially will utilize that more, and we'll get into that, okay? So I just wanted to clear this up, right? So I put them in the comment section just now. I'm going to pin this as well. That with Sergio Gomez, right? There's one card that I did miss, and it was a Sergio Gomez one. I'll even mention in the defender video that I actually prefer to use him in the attacker evo over the defensive one if I had the want and need for him. He would easily be a top A tier card because he's really well formatted for the attacking midfielder role. Thanks for bringing that up. Oh, just gotta thanks. Just gotta change that here. There we go. For bringing that one up. Okay. Yeah, so just wanted to clear up with that one specifically, pin that one. There we go. Okay. Because that one was for the attackers, and honestly, as I mentioned, I would not mind him. I would not mind putting him in the attackers one, but he's not an S tier because they don't really give like the right play styles. He doesn't have the skill moves and the weak foot for it. Like on the attacker one, guys, like listen, the defensive one, they give him the skill moves and the weak foot with a 5-star, 4-star, but on the attacker one, they actually give him less, right? So on the attacker one, not this one, excuse me, the attacker one, which is this one right here, it's a 5-star, 3-star. So it's not a 5-star, 4-star, right? The 4-star exists for the defender one, okay? So just be very mindful of that. Is it that big of a deal to work with a lower weak foot on a card like this? No, because he's left-footed on the left-hand side with a high medium work rate. So if you use him there, he will still do a really, really good job. But maybe if they brought up the weak foot one more, then it'd be considered like an S tier card, like a low S tier card, because, and the attackers I would say specifically, right? But we'll put him in the A tier for this one just because of that specifically. It's just you have a good option between the two, but defensively I do prefer an Assignon over him, right? So just wanted to mention that really quickly. I don't think a lot of these cards are going to be B tier, to be honest with you, because they're actually really well formatted for the current meta of the game. Maybe some, we'll see, right? Okay, so the next one is the Fiat card. So I don't think this is a card that a lot of people will get, right? However, he's not that poorly formatted, right? He actually has really good stuff, okay? Because 84 acceleration, 94 for sprint speed is actually not that bad if he has certain base characteristics in game. So let's mention a few things that actually is nice on the card. First of all, he's left-footed, so playing him in the left center back position would be a W, medium high work rates. And if we take a look at the play styles of the card, he does have a block plus with a bruiser and an aerial, right? While working with good physical capabilities. So to put this card in a B tier, I personally feel like would be not an ideal thing. Like I said, I don't actually think a lot of these cards would be B tier cards because a lot of them will have their own things that make them usable in their own ways. And I don't think that this card is going to be that terrible in game, right? Now, again, guys, when it comes to defenders, you guys know me that I go for the absolute top tier S ones, because if they're not, then I would not use them in general. I'm going to be honest, right? Like my right back has to be full meta center backs, like the defense especially, you guys know how I am, right? But for people that want to use different types of cards, like even Disasi, who's not a full meta card, is still really nice to use in the game, right? Because he has physical presence. You guys know that this card at his 6'1" height, right? High and average body type, with the physical stats that he has for base card stats, is nice to work with. On the attackers, it's interesting because he has power head and acrobatic. I mean, technically speaking, if you're trolling and you want to use him up top in the corner kicks and you do that, then sure, right? It's not necessarily a horrible decision, right? But it's not the most ideal one either, because the defender one just makes the most sense for him, right? You want those playstyle pluses, because block plus for a bigger guy like this is going to be more noticeable to work with in game, right? Because you're going to work with someone that on a shadow chemistry style has the pace, has the defense to work with. So if you went in this direction, I would not be against it, but he's going to be in the lower area in regards to general selection from multiple people, in my opinion. But he actually looks like he's well formatted, okay? The next one is Parisi, right? So let's check out the Parisi card, right? Parisi is this one right here. You had the option of putting him into attacker, so let's not make the same mistake as Sergio Gomez. I mean, listen, you can technically give him a hunter and use him as the attacking oriented center mid. Would I put him in an attackers as much as Sergio Gomez? No, I definitely would not, right? From the evolutions that you have here, the main one is going to be the defensive one, right? So with this card, he's formatted a little bit differently. He's a little bit more agile to work with, and I think that his pace is formatted in a way where he doesn't feel like he's going to be lacking in certain areas as much, right? Because if you go to Sergio Gomez, let's just take a look at this card again, right? So if we go to his card, we go to the defenders one, right? What's the main thing that you guys see here, right? It's poorly formatted physical capabilities. Now with Parisi, guys, in the defensive positions, he's not as poorly formatted in that area. Now, don't get me wrong, he doesn't have the 5-star skills to work with, but to be honest with you guys, defensively, I just want your left stick to be nice. I want your attacking presence to be nice. If I ever cross the ball, that sort of stuff, right? If we go to his play styles, he has a rapid, right? So if I give this card a shadow chemistry style, for someone who is already working with some decent physical capabilities on a shadow chemistry style, this is a well-formatted card and would actually play well in the left back position. Again, would he perform as well as someone like Kai Havertz? Probably not, because Kai Havertz is the lengthy. He has that physical element to him that is added for the full meta capacity of the game, right? But in my opinion, yet another card that I would add into the A tier category. If you guys were to select any of these cards, I would not be against it, right? With the attackers one, there's some cards that I wouldn't be against, but they're more sentimental. But these ones like are competent cards to use in the meta of the gameplay. Again, Sergio Gomez, we're gonna name this. This is more of a attackers one in my opinion, right? But we're gonna keep him there for now, just to kind of like make sure that people understand that we did miss out on him for the attackers one, just in case we want to check that out, right? Okay, guys, so the next card that we have here is this Fava card. So guys, listen, yet another card that I would not mind putting in the A tier category, right? Like I said, I don't know if Wilms is like garbage, like, because most of these cards are really well formatted for you to use different types of players. So this one was actually like a W Future Stars for people to use these like different players, right? This card, the reason why she's so nice, right, in comparison, is because again, right, if you use this card in your team, she doesn't have aggression, of course, right? But as a female left back that plays in the Spanish league, right, providing you a link to someone like Atenia, it's a really solid option to work with. If you were to go in this direction as well, again, with like most of these options here, I would not be against people choosing this card, because on the shadow chemistry style, even if she's not a lengthy player, right, which doesn't put her at the top tier meta in my opinion, unless she's like Bacha, right? This card is still very nice. It's still a very, very nice card because the pace at a 99.99 is awesome. The defensive stats massively improved is awesome. This card, you know, especially because it's a female player, her transitioning, her left stick movement will be significantly better as a defender in those positions, because these, you know, dribbling stats for a defender is actually really nice. She's a 5'8" player, high medium work rates. The only thing that she may lack in certain situations is going to be physical presence, right? But playstyles wise, look at what she has, right? So she has aerial. Aerial's a W playstyle to give her because she's got 90 jumping. So it's not impossible for her to win the ball in the air. Is it as good as some of these physical guys? Obviously not, because in the meta, those guys are always going to be the most ideal, in my opinion, right? I'm almost positive that even at the competitive pro events, they probably never used a single female player in the fullback position. Like maybe they used like a Karchawi because Bacha didn't exist during that time period. And then the right back position, I can't think of anybody at the top of my head, honestly. But in my opinion, it'd probably be mostly the male players there. I think, unless because guys, I don't watch the event. Unless there's one that's I'm missing completely, let me know. But because I think the female players, like the biggest meta ones, would be like Hanson and stuff, like generally, right? But again, with this selection, guys, if you were to go in this direction, don't be ashamed, because she is formatted very nicely, and depending on the links that you need in your team, she's an easy A tier card. I think for these ones, I wouldn't mind doing this. I wouldn't mind doing this, but like I said, this is not. There's no order here. If you were to select any of these ones, I wouldn't be like ashamed of it, to be honest, because they actually are well formatted for the most part, right? I'm not as picky with this one as I was with the attacker one. The attacker one, I was definitely more linear. I was like, make sure you get these ones, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, Bayer is the next one here. So with Bayer's card, right, 88 rated, you can obviously put him into the attackers one too. Irrelevant, we're not going to add him into the attackers. I mean, listen, I even mentioned in the attackers, could you technically do it? Sure, because, you know, technically speaking, they did give him a a power header to work with. If he has a power header to work with, you know, he also has aerial. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, excuse me, then sure, on the corner kicks, you could technically score some opportunities because he does have a 98 for jumping. And when you give him a shadow, it's still a pretty decently formatted card. But I think for usability, guys, right, in regards to using a Burnley center back, it's just more ideal to go in the direction of giving him, you know, the shadow chemistry style on a card like this, where the defensive stats are much higher, right? Well formatted. And key thing here, controlled lengthy player with 94 acceleration, 96 for sprint speed, okay? Physical stats also set up very nicely on the card. Reactions and composure set up nicely on the card. What's the only things that might not put him at an S tier, right? It's the high work rates, because mainly guys have medium high is just too clutch, right? There's some cards that you might use in the high work rated positions in the center back position that could be clutch, right? But high throws it off a little bit, right? Play styles wise, he has block plus. He doesn't really have anything else to work with. And I feel like the other stuff is very nice. And you guys are going to see from some of the top tier meta options here why I would rather go with those ones, right? But listen, man, if you're a Burnley fan, you guys are cooking, bro. Assignon and Bayer, for people that get nice links in their team, good for you guys, man. Super happy for you guys, right? Because these guys are definitely meta enough, right? 100%. But Bayer, we're going to push a little bit further down. Again, I'm not like super like in order of this, but this is not a horrible card by any means. But just remember that with defenders, guys, I go for the absolute top, right? This card I'd put here just because of the links. Like the links here is nice, and the links here is also nice. This, again, this is where it gets a little bit different. These three right here, I would say. It gets a little bit more different, I would say. But like, you know, these three, like for the links and whatnot, because Sergio Gomez, like I said, I would rather use him the other one, but we're leaving him there just for that. But yeah, no, definitely some pretty decent options. We have another card here who's going to be the Eric Garcia card, right? So with Eric Garcia, guys, if we take a look at this card, right? Let's go specifically to the defenders here, and we go to Eric Garcia. If you give this card a shadow chemistry style, he is actually a controlled lengthy player, right? So again, these are really key things to mention with the controlled lengthy parts, because listen, since he is a controlled lengthy player, 89 acceleration, 98 for sprint speed, this card is actually well formatted because his physicality is at the very least in the minimums of the 80s, okay? The mid 80s area, which is very important. What else is important in the card? He's 6 foot tall, medium high work rates, but he does need some specific play styles to be really good. So let's take a look at the card, right? Play styles, he has block, relentless, pinged pass, long ball pass, anticipate, and press proven. So for me, I would still add him into specifically the A tier category, but a high A tier category, because the card is still very well formatted. Like I said, guys, I'm probably going to delete a lot of these roles because the defender one, there's a lot of good options to work with. I'm not as nitpicky with these ones, but we're starting to move into some cards that are a little bit, you know? But some of these cards in the A tier can be argued into the lower tier for the S, okay? They definitely can be because they're actually really, really well formatted, okay? But I just wish he had more key play styles to work with, right? And we're going to get into this next one. You guys are going to understand right away, okay? I'm sorry if I mispronounce his name, okay? Like, I mean, I even mentioned this in the review, okay? Geertruida. Listen, okay? If you are looking at this game from a full meta capacity, if you're looking at it from my eyes and it's coming down to like which defenders that I would actually use for a longer period of time, right? Not necessarily because I need specific links or all that kind of stuff, because like I said, Svava actually looks like a pretty decent card. Assignon looks like a decent card, all that kind of stuff. Like Svava actually, she's decent. You know what I'm saying? Like 5-star, 4-star on a card like that with a shadow, blah, blah, blah. You're good to go, right? But listen, so I'm going to tell you guys, man, when it comes to the meta, Geertruida is formatted very nicely, okay? I actually have an individual video for that card as well, but I wouldn't have even needed it because he performs the way that you think, okay? This card, look at his play styles. This is the key thing here, but there's a lot of other variables that make him really nice, okay? So, first of all, the position changes, W. You could technically use him as a CDM if you wanted to. You can use him as your stay back, right back if you wanted to. You can use him as your center back. So many different ways of utilizing this card. In my opinion, I like him a lot in the center back position because I think the play styles matches it more, but we'll talk about that, right? So this card, guys, things are bouncing off of it, okay? It's a lot of stuff because you guys need to understand that playstyles is such a huge thing this year, okay? Huge. Block Plus is working with a jockey. That's amazing, okay? Amazing. He has a regular anticipate. He has a rapid, but listen, he has a rapid while being able to provide him with, hey, whichever direction you want. It depends on your tactics, because if you're being conservative, you don't have to use a shadow. But me, I like to use open tactics. You guys know how I am, right? But if you went in the direction of giving this card an anchor chemistry style or a shadow, because an anchor, look at the accelerate, okay? Controlled lengthy on a shadow, and then on the anchor, you would provide him with a mostly lengthy with a 90 acceleration, 94 for sprint speed, and you boost the physical capabilities of the card, but you don't touch the jumping and stuff, right? So again, it depends on your tactics, how you line up. If you feel like it's more open, having more pace might be more ideal. If you feel like it's more conservative, giving him an anchor would be bad. It doesn't matter what chemistry style you give him, do whatever you want. This is an S tier card from the evolution choices that you have here. If you guys actually watch the individual review, the only thing that I mention, right, to really kickstart this card is I wish they gave him a regular bruiser. A regular bruiser, oh my goodness gracious, would be so clutch for him, because you notice the lower aggression from Shadow without a bruiser. Because guys, even if I boost the aggression, you're still going to notice that in certain situations it would have been nice if he had. But listen, you give this card an anchor, guys, right? And it's still a very well formatted card. I just like that on the Shadow, you give him extra interceptions as well. You know, like interceptions is a really, really big playstyle that, you know, the card obviously does not have on the card, but it's nice to have whenever given the situation, because you can see from some defensive opportunities that if he does not intercept the ball, then I don't get it. And you're going to notice more stuff like that for cards that are like this at 6'1" with the body type that he has. But guys, everything is bouncing off of this card, right? He's controlled lengthy with a rapid. Those two things, crazy. He's a block plus player with a jockey. That's crazy to work with too. He's working with a regular anticipate, so if I'm manually challenging, there's more of a chance of getting the ball back, right? And then he also has press proven to work with the relentless, and both of those together is amazing. Second man press for defending is a big deal, because, you know, when you manually defend, it's not like as crazy to do, right? When you're doing like I said, if you're doing second man press, it's amazing. And if you're doing manual defending, it's also gonna be good too, because he has jockey to work with that anticipate and a block, right? So if you watch the review, I was like, this is the type of card. I had a feeling it was gonna be meta. Like I was even mentioning it when I went up against Kylian Mbappe, who has a rapid plus, right, on that controlled lengthy. If you're looking at it through my eyes, boys, he's an S tier, and that's a card that, in my opinion, is one of the top choices that you have to go with. Okay, so the next one that we have here is the Kosuna card. So let's talk about this card as well. All right. We have to go here, and then we have to go here. Okay. So look at how this card is formatted. Are you ready? So the first thing, mostly lengthy. We're already starting off hot. Okay. Mostly lengthy with very good physical stats. Okay. Again, you can go in the direction of potentially giving this card an anchor chemistry style. It would still make him a lengthy player, right? And then if you give him the shadow chemistry style, it would make him a mostly lengthy player. Whichever direction you go, we're already starting off hot with this card, okay? So he's a 4-star weak foot player. He's a low high work rate, which I don't mind, right? Medium high is usually nice for a little bit of aggression, but low high is not bad. Low high is actually very nice. The key thing here, 6'3" height, and what play styles for the position changes that he has, because he has center back and right wing back, okay? Play styles wise, he has a block plus, a slide tackle, and a press proven. So this card, in my opinion, is like, he's like an S tier and a top tier A. It's not a guaranteed S tier like Gertruda, but it's like both. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like this, because of the playstyles, right? Like there's a few more playstyles that definitely would have added to the card, but this guy is going to do really well for you in game. He's a big dude. Physical presence is really nice, right? And it's very important to take a look at that type of stuff. It's almost like, and again, we might adjust this based off of the cards that I'm currently seeing here, right? It's based off of like the selections that you should make and shouldn't make, all that kind of stuff, right? But it's like this. he's kind of like this. I'm not like 100% putting him on the S like Garretrado. Garretrado is like an obvious S tier, but it's kind of like that between the two cards in my opinion, right? And like I said, at the end of the video, we'll adjust the list accordingly, right? But it's still a very nice card. It's because he's a big dude, guys, and big dudes like this, they make a really, really big difference in your team, because when you go to the body types, right, and you go to a card like this, you go to the body types like this, right, and you go to the FS Academy Defenders. There we go, right? FS Academy Defenders. This card, right, because he is, look at the body type, a high and average plus, it's a big dude. And big dudes like this with a block plus, you're cooking, okay? You're cooking with these types of guys. And again, guys, because you can go in the direction, right, of giving him an anchor chemistry style, right, to boost his physical capabilities up by a little bit, you're giving him 98 jumping. So sure, you know, you go to the play styles, he doesn't have any jumping play styles, but I'm telling you guys this right now, right, just from past experience with other cards, high and average plus body type with a 98 jumping, this guy will score headers for you, bro. I'm telling you, he will. I can almost bet on it that he will, okay? So really look into this card too, because this card I would really consider in the S and A. Like we're gonna adjust accordingly at the end of the video, okay? We are gonna adjust accordingly. We're gonna see what's up with these cards, right? Okay, the next one we have here is Tolkien. Do I think that Tolkien's gonna be a top choice for a lot of people? Maybe not, but I'm gonna tell you guys this right now, that depending on the situation of your team, excuse me, he may not be a horrible option. Because guys, the key thing with the link with this card is going to be the link to Lionel Messi, okay? That's the key link because of the MLS players. So for those of you that did the player pick like your boy, and you ended up getting lucky enough to get Team of the Year Messi, this might not be a bad choice. Meta-wise, it might not be like as ideal, right? Because obviously, you know, 5'7", shadow chemistry style, blah, blah, blah. But he's still well formatted. The only thing that he lacks on the card is going to be in the strength department at a 75, okay? 75 for strength, but defensive stats with the pace and the defending is very, very well formatted on the card, right? Because as a fullback, if you take a look at his play styles, right? Block plus relentless. Relentless is more relevant for the fullback position. The block you would notice way more if it's the taller players, but they do still do it sometimes with the smaller players too, depending on where you format them, right? But you know, he's got press proven, he's got slide tackle. I think for a card like this, just because he may not be a card that people want to link up too much with, it would be a B tier category. Not necessarily specifically because of in-game capabilities, but because it might not be a card that people are going to be too into getting, right? As much as possible and compared to some of these other cards, right? And we'll be taking a look into that with the selections as well. Don't look into the tiers too much because, as I mentioned, this evolution, there's actually like a lot of very good options, right? And then the last one we have here is a player that plays in the right back position, Wilms, who plays for the female players. So with this card, you can give her a shadow chemistry style, right, to boost the acceleration and sprint speed to be at a 97, 96. She is 5'9", high work rates. Shadow chemistry style does boost the card to be in a pretty decent area. Again, it wouldn't be a horrible choice to go with because she actually has some pretty good play styles to work with too, right? Relentless plus, block plus, incisive. Like, she has a lot of very nice passing stuff, which is a big W, to be fair. Long ball pass is actually an underrated play style for certain attacking players, because if you notice that a player on the opposite side is really attacking that space, having that play style with really good passing stats or decent passing stats is going to be incredibly helpful, right? Okay, guys, so this one, a little bit more complicated to do, to be honest, in regards to doing the tier list, because there's some players that could be argued into certain positions, to be honest with you, okay? But we also have to be honest in regards to the types of players that people are going to be deciding to get for their teams for the longevity of the game. This is a very key thing to mention, because with these cards, sometimes people use them for like 1 week and then they're done, right? Okay. If we look at it from a full meta perspective, I think that Garretrado is an undisputed S tier card, okay? I actually do not consider him an A tier at all. From the selections that you have here, I think that he is one of the must-do evolutions because of the way that he is formatted playstyles-wise as well as stats-wise, okay? Very important to mention. For me, the A tier categories are definitely going to be a few cards that some people are going to get. In my opinion, right, there are certain cards here that you can debate into certain areas, right? Especially the B tiers into the A tier. So you see the B tiers area, this B tiers area up until like the point of Perezi, all of those can be switched around, right? For me though, when I look at players like Assignon, Cosno, if I'm saying his name correctly, and Svava, I think that for longevity, you have more opportunity with those types of cards. And the reason being for this is because they have very good base mechanic requirements for them to be really good cards in the game. With Svava by itself, okay, she is someone who is a 5-star, 4-star player that plays for Real Madrid. There are going to be many options to work with when it comes to that specific position, if you don't necessarily want someone who's going to add a physical element to your team. If you have a formation where she's on overlap, that's where she's going to be best utilized, because it's a card that's going to be able to move across the pitch very nicely. Cosno, for the Bundesliga center back links, for the Leverkusen links, just in case they make those sort of cards in the future that end up being really nice. Tall player, high in average plus body type, working with a block plus, I think is going to be crazy as well. You can go in either the direction of giving him a shadow or an anchor, and he's going to do really well, right? Parisi, this card, also a card that people need to look into as well, because as a left back, he is well formatted. Now, generally speaking, if you have someone like a Theo Hernandez, then you're cooking with Theo Hernandez, right? But in the left back position in particular, if we go here and then we go specifically to the Serie A, let's just take a look at the options you have to work with, okay? Right off the bat, you can see that you have generally, right, not much to work with. You only have the Theo Hernandez card. Now, listen, if you have Theo Hernandez, you're not replacing him. Let's be honest. The animations of that card, he's an S tier card. His rare gold card, I still use on my SBC account, and that card still cooks, right? But this card is also a good selection. You could see here that the only potential opportunities that you have is from evolutions, okay? Because you clearly don't have anything else other than him as a very, very good option. Theo Hernandez is the top tier option from this, unless you have evolutions, but not everybody has the evolution. So if you have those sort of players, then obviously good for you, but you know what I mean. So Sergio Gomez, as I was mentioning earlier, he is a player that, in my opinion, I would rather put in the attacker evolution over the defender one. And that's why I put him at the A tier, to make sure that people know that, because it is a card that I missed out on in regards to looking at his stats. The way that he's formatted in that attacker one just makes more sense than the defender one, because in the defender one, I'm sorry, I need more things. If I give him a pace boost, but then his physical is set up a certain way, it's going to annoy me in certain situations. And you guys can see it from the review that it did when he was up against the players that are really fast. You need players like Assignon, who has the quick step and the rapid, to push pace out of the card. You need the players like Cosna, who's on a lengthy, you know, pushing the physical and the pace out of the card. You need Gertruda, especially because this guy's a lengthy with like super high pace. Anchor, you boost the physical. Like, you need those guys, especially in this game when people are very, very park the bus, counter attack intuitive, right? These two you can give a shadow chemistry style to, and it puts their pace in a very, very good area, and I like that a lot, right? And then, you know, these cards, as I mentioned, right, with Eric Garcia, that point specifically into the 3 cards here, arguments can be made for both of them, right? But Eric Garcia, I think for people that actually want to build some sort of team where they have like Man City players or they have Barcelona players, there's a few different things you can work with there as well, right? Especially for people that are building some sort of Barcelona team. Garcia is still very well formatted. He looks like a center back card that could be really nice. Just understand and know, guys, that from me, I'm going for the top tier cards, right? So if I were to select on a personal level, because if I'm looking at it from like a meta perspective, right? These 3 guys right here, Parisi, Sergio Gomez, and Eric Garcia, meta-wise, going for defenders, I wouldn't consider them as much, okay? Because in the left back position, I would rather go with Theo Hernandez. In the left back position for Sergio Gomez, I would rather go with a Kai Havertz winter wildcard. If you don't have Kai Havertz, then there might be some other left back options too. I'd have to look afterwards, right? And then Eric Garcia is a center back, but me, I'm looking at like absolute top tier center backs, right? Then it would be, for me personally, the second choice would be harder between Svava, Cosno, and Assignon. For me, I might choose Svava just because of the capabilities of the card in general, okay? In the left back position. She's not as full meta, right? But it's a Real Madrid player that gives you those specific links. If I did the Atenia card, who in my opinion was an S tier from the attackers, that is a link just from there, right? And the thing is that with this card, there is a comparison to be made with some of the left backs that belong in this league. And the main comparison is going to be to Olga. And to be fair to Olga, she's actually not bad. She's actually a very, very solid left back, right? So if you were to go to specifically to the La Liga Santander, and then we went specifically only at the female players, we can obviously go to like Real Madrid and look at Mendy. Mendy's obviously good, especially if you have the Centurions and stuff, right? But if we were specifically to look at the Liga F players, right? The only selections that you have from cards that are not evolutions is the Olga card, who is a 4-star, 3-star player in comparison to a 5-star, 4-star, right? And it's also to the Ona Batal card. And remember that these cards have specific playstyles. In her case, she only has the Relentless, but she has Whipped, Pass, Block, Intercept, and Rapid. And to be fair, those are very good playstyles. So it just depends on what you want, because with Svava, right, you are giving her 2 playstyles, and to be fair to both of the playstyles, they're actually really, really nice, right? So with this card, you know, Shadow Chemistry style to boost the acceleration, sprint speed, and defensive stats of the card, you know, you're still working with someone very nice, but she's a high medium instead of a high. So it really depends on what you are looking for in particular, right? Because having just a regular Ripped Pass on Olga is actually really nice. But then there's the other card, who is the Ona Batal card, right? Who is someone that, you know, people actually use in the fullback position. You would have to pack this card. Obviously, she's super expensive, but, you know, a pretty decent card, has the Jockey Plus to work with. So if you don't necessarily want to get those specific cards, then you can go for Svava, right? So Svava wouldn't be a bad choice. For me, it would be a very difficult choice for the second player in particular between the 3 cards, right? For me, if I'm looking at it in a serious manner, Gertruda is an absolute choice, but the other ones will really, really depend on the team that you are building, okay? It'll really depend. If I had a team where I wanted first owner cards left, right, and center, because I'm a first owner guy, that's the type of team that I like to build. And if I'm a first owner type of dude, and I already have Kyle Walker at right back, I would use that card. Bundesliga, I don't use Bundesliga that much. Female players from Real Madrid, you know, there's a couple to work with there. Svava would be that first owner thing. So there's no clear and obvious one from the second future stars. If there was, I would tell you guys right away in the S tier. 100% I'd be like, guys, these 2 specifically, if you don't do them, you will regret it, okay? And Gertruda, I think you would. To be honest, I think you would regret not getting him, okay? But these 3 in particular, I would have more trouble between those specific ones, but that's why they join the higher tier, A tier category. And then these ones will really depend on the links that you're working with. And then these ones are gonna be links that people get. Because guys, listen, these 3 cards at the bottom here, they're still pretty decent, okay? Just remember this. Remember when I tell you guys this, that they're still pretty decent. Even Wilms, if you want to go in that direction, you can, but I think she will be the worst selection of the bunch when it actually comes down to meta, okay? So this is my tier list. The second option, as I mentioned, will be very, very difficult to make, because it depends on the format of your team and the types of players that you want and how you build your team, okay? If, like I said, if there was a more obvious choice between some of these guys where it's like, guys, if you don't choose this card, you're an idiot, I would put him in the second choice for the S tier. But for me, I don't have a clear and obvious, because there's always something missing for some of these cards when it comes to like the meta, right? But Gertruda, they gave him so many things that just makes him really, really well-rounded, okay? Thank you guys for watching the video. I will catch you guys for the next one. Peace out, dudes. Love you guys.